Hello and welcome back to my humble show. I am your host for today and every other day, the Articulate Thinker. Hopefully, here to bring you art articles and articulation straight from Articulation Station. So be sure to like, subscribe, and enjoy the ride. Don't forget to turn on those bell notifications while you're at it. If you like it, put a ring on it. Sharing is caring. All that other good stuff. I'm going to be talking a bit about Senator Bob Menendez from New Jersey, as well as about Representative George Santos from New York. They've both found themselves in a bit of hot water. Some additional charges against them. So I'm going to read into that just a little bit, read through it, react to it, as I often do. Thank you for being here. Hope you're having a great day. The weekend is almost here, and I'm ready for it. Well, I say almost, but it is only Thursday. I have a day to go, a lot of news to cover, too much news to cover all in one show. I gotta go back to work soon. I'm on my lunch break right now, as per usual. You know the drill. Here are some headlines about Senator Bob Menendez on the latest. Okay. Senator Bob Menendez charged with conspiracy to act as foreign agent of Egypt in new indictment. Okay. That's interesting stuff from CNN. Interesting even more so because Egypt kind of comes into play in all of these current foreign policy issues, these Middle East issues, if you know what I mean, referring to Israel and Palestine, of course, or Hamas. And speaking of Hamas, there's this supposed day of jihad tomorrow. According to a former leader of Hamas, I'm not sure how much credibility that has, but it is concerning, regardless. And I imagine some authorities will be on high alert tomorrow, as they should be, especially if anything starts to pop off. I mean, we have millions and millions of illegal immigrants in this country, essentially. So who knows who all is here and what they may be up to. Not to throw dirt on anyone particular, but we have many people illegally here who happen to be from the Middle East, including countries which are terrorist hotbeds, nation states. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully nothing, but a lot has happened already. There's a lot of news in regards to all of that. I've tried to keep up with it, tried to cover it. But you know what? I'm just going to get right into this particular topic or set of topics because government corruption is always a fun cover, isn't it? Another headline from CNBC. Senator Bob Menendez charged with acting as agent of Egypt and superseding indictment. Menendez accused of acting as foreign agent for Egypt while helming Senate Foreign Relations Committee. That's from Politico. Which one should I start with? I will start with CNN, but not before I pull up this older headline from CNN, in case you want a little history on his story. And this is from September 22. Senator Bob Menendez and wife indicted on bribery charges. DOJ seizes gold bars and $500,000. Of course, they maintain that they did nothing wrong and that it was all about the tradition of their family. But they have some very strange traditions, if that's the case. There's a video here. I imagine if I click on it, an ad is going to pop up. I don't want to deal with that. So I'll just read a little bit of this. New Jersey Democratic Senator Bob Menendez was charged on Friday with corruption-related offenses for the second time in, almost said 100 years, 10 years. Menendez and his wife, Nadine Arslanian Menendez, are accused of accepting hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes in exchange for the senator's influence, according to the newly unsealed federal indictment. There is a link here. Let me see if it pulls up the actual indictment. For example, a PDF. I'm not seeing it so far. I'm not seeing anything so far. But this talk of bribery is interesting, especially considering how Joe Biden previously played a role in the role that Bob Menendez has played a role in. Yeah. So he was acting as a foreign agent, or at least that's what he's being accused of, while being on the Foreign Relations Committee, as Joe Biden once was. And we know Joe Biden has some accusations, though less formal, against him about bribery as well. Or shall I say, quid pro quo in Ukraine. And all of the money flowing to the Biden family in general. But I don't mean to tie that together too much. It's just something that's on my mind because during the White House press briefing from earlier today, Karine Jean-Pierre and John Kirby, well, Karine Jean-Pierre, I believe, were asked about the coincidence that Bob Menendez just so happens to have been in a situation which Joe Biden himself used to be in back when Joe Biden was a senator. But I might play some clips of that before it's over with. I want to move on to this latest news since this link is still invalid. But that's okay because we have a newer indictment, newer version of the indictment. Superseding indictment, I should say. And it is right here. Contributed by CNN Digital. And this is essentially the PDF, though. You can pull it up in various forms and fashions. There is quite a bit here. 44 pages worth. I'm sure you can find that if you want to see it. Sign that if you want to see it, and find that if you want to see it. So here's this article from CNN. Senator Bob Menendez charged with conspiracy to act as a foreign agent of Egypt in new indictment. Let's see here. Kara Scannell. She actually participated in the publication of the previous article as well. Also from CNN, obviously. So she has been following the matter, I imagine. Let me just pause in case I want to use this as a thumbnail. There we go. Very good. Federal prosecutors on Thursday announced an additional charge against New Jersey Democratic Senator Bob Menendez and his wife, alleging they conspired to have the senator act as a foreign agent of Egypt. The superseding indictment filed against Menendez, who was chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee at the time of the alleged actions, adds a new dimension to the case by alleging a U.S. senator was working on behalf of another country. Menendez and his wife, Nadine Arslanian Menendez, were indicted last month on corruption-related offenses and are accused of accepting hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes in exchange for the senator's influence peddling, in other words. Prosecutors have alleged the bribes included gold, cash, home mortgage payments, compensation for a low or no-show job, and a luxury vehicle. Reminds me of Hunter Biden receiving a certain Porsche. Think of that what you may. I mean, who should we trust at this point in terms of politicians? Over at the White House, they're refraining from saying that he should not maintain his position in Congress. And over on the right, there are certain politicians, congressmen, who are refraining from saying that George Santos should be expelled from Congress on his part, over in the House of Representatives. But at the same time, there is a motion to expel him at this point, I believe. I'm referring to George Santos. Jumping back and forth here. So I'm just emphasizing that there is corruption on all sides, and you can never be too sure about anyone. Gotta hold them accountable, otherwise stuff like this happens. This guy has been in politics for a long time, as has Joe Biden. So let's not pretend that Joe Biden is as pure as the driven snow. That's just not how politics goes. But yes, both Menendez and his wife have pleaded not guilty. A trial date has been set for May of next year. So this is going to drag out. And I don't think I've actually talked about this until now. This is not necessarily new news. This is just a bit of additional information. Well, new information, I suppose. So yeah, it is new news in that sense. But there's just so much to keep up with. I'm always catching up with it rather than keeping up with it. Menendez has refused calls from his fellow Democrats to resign, but has not said if he will run for re-election next year. The new charge carries a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison. Menendez and his wife are now facing as much as 50 years in prison if convicted. And don't get me wrong, some of the Democrats are calling for his resignation or removal. Even AOC said that he should not be in Congress anymore, in the Senate anymore. AOC, so props to her on that part, I guess. Though not much else deserves approval or applaud when it comes to AOC. According to the alleged scheme, Menendez met with an Egyptian intelligence official at his Senate office in 2019, along with his wife and New Jersey businessman Wael Hannah, where they discussed a human rights issue involving Egypt and a U.S. citizen injured in an airstrike in 2015. Certain members of Congress believed Egypt had not provided fair compensation to the American injured in the attack, causing them to object to provide military aid to Egypt. Object to providing? Seems to be a bit of a typo there. But that's okay. I've had a few speakos of my own. The following year, in 2022, prosecutors alleged that Nadine Menendez texted one of the Egyptian officials, "Anytime you need anything, you have my number and we will make everything happen." A few days later, she arranged a meeting between the Egyptian official and the senator to discuss negotiations between Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia over a dam Ethiopia was constructing on the Nile River. The Nile isn't just a river in Egypt. The dam's construction was a key foreign policy concern of Egypt, prosecutors allege. I did actually skip this stanza here, so I'll go ahead and read it. Following the meeting, which is a reference to the earlier portion of this article, prosecutors allege Menendez searched the name of the injured American and his claim. 1 week later, the Egyptian official texted Hannah in Arabic stating if Menendez helped resolve the issue, he will sit very comfortably. Hannah replied, "Orders, consider it done." All right. So follow that if you can. Within a month, prosecutors allege Menendez wrote a letter to the U.S. Treasury Secretary and Secretary of State to express my concern about the stalled negotiations over the dam. I therefore urge you to significantly increase the State Department's engagement on negotiations surrounding the dam, the letter said. Prosecutors allege Menendez knew about the foreign agent law. It is illegal for a member of Congress or any public official to act as foreign agent. Prosecutors allege Nadine Menendez and Hannah failed to register as agents working on behalf of Egypt and conspired to have Menendez act on behalf of Egypt. Hannah has previously pleaded not guilty. Doesn't mean he's not guilty. In May 2022, Menendez sent a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland to follow up on an earlier request to prosecutors to open the investigation into the former lawmaker David Rivera, alleging he had worked on behalf of the Venezuela state-owned oil company, or at least one of them. Hannah's attorney Lawrence Lusberg rejected the new allegations. The new allegation that Wael Hannah was part of a plot concocted over dinner to enlist Senator Menendez as an agent of the Egyptian government is as absurd as it is false, Lusberg said. As with other charges in this indictment, Mr. Hannah will vigorously defend against this new and baseless allegation. Lawyers for Menendez could not immediately be reached for comment on the new charge. So that's the latest in the Menendez case. Safe to say they're going to be denying, since denial isn't just a river in Egypt. But that is that. And let me just pause this for a moment, see if I can pull up that clip I was referring to from today's White House press briefing. All right, here you go. This is from Benny Johnson. Karine Jean-Pierre gets defensive when asked for Biden's thoughts on the new charges against Bob Menendez, that he acted as a foreign agent. Here you go.
To the Chairman Menendez thing, because in another realm, this would be a bigger effing deal. A successor to the president as chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee.
Well, he's no longer chairman.
No, but the president was once chairman.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes. I see. Yes. You're making that connection.
Yes,
got it. Successor. No, I got it.
Has been accused of being a foreign agent for Egypt, which, not for nothing, is involved in this situation right now, for that matter. Has the president been brought up to speed on this? If he has no comment today, can we see comment on whether he has any concerns that someone with that kind of a position may have been accused of this, and whether he should be running for re-election?
So we have always said it is a serious matter, right? We've always said that, and we'll continue to treat that as a serious matter. I just don't have anything else to share beyond any statements from the president. I just don't have anything outside of that. But of course, we see this as a serious matter.
To the Chairman Menendez thing, because in another realm, this would be a bigger effing deal.
And yes, Ed did say, in another realm, this would be a big effing deal. That's unusual lingo coming from a White House press briefing. But he made his point there, and Karine Jean-Pierre got it, but she didn't really get it. She just repeated the word serious. Oh, the president takes this very seriously. When she's saying that, it's because she doesn't have anything better to say, anything more definitive to say, or if she does and she just won't say it. Whatever the case may be, not much to see there, right? I do think it's interesting when things like this pop up with Republicans versus Democrats. Say if the Congress members who were simping for Hamas were Republicans, they would be referred to as right-wing MAGA extremists or something like that. I imagine. But because they are Democrats, namely the squad members, the White House is they're just vaguely condemning statements without getting specific, without calling them left-wing extremists. I think that's worth noting. I mean, you can let me know if you disagree with me on that. Feel free to disagree. Let me know in the comments below what you think, what you know. Not trying to pit one against the other here or anything like that, but just observing and reporting. Okay. You can see this superseding indictment for yourself if you want. I'm not going to get into that. I already read some of the basic information. It has to do with Egypt and accusations about him, well, being a foreign agent, essentially. Things which many politicians are accused of by their political opponents. They're not always proven, but in this case, it looks like he has a lot of dirt on him, actual dirt on him, as does Republican George Santos. Here are some headlines about him. From NBC News, this is from yesterday. Republican lawmakers to introduce resolution to expel Representative George Santos from Congress. I've been on board with that since before the announcement was ever even made. He just has so much dirt on him as well, like actual dirt. Definitely can't trust him on anything. Complete grifter as far as I'm concerned. And criminal, for that matter. All right, from The Hill. New York's first-term GOP reps will move to expel Santos after new charges. Let me go ahead and click on that one. Again, from The Hill. Already got the headline covered. New York House Republicans will introduce a measure to expel Representative George Santos, Republican, once again from New York, from the legislative body. Representative Anthony D'Esposito announced on Wednesday, Republican from New York as well. Today I'll be introducing an expulsion resolution to rid the People's House of fraudster George Santos, he wrote on X, formerly known as Twitter. I'm all about politicians calling out members of their own party. I'm all about that accountability, so happy to see that, happy to hear that. But I know not everyone in their party will be on board with that. He is kind of a guaranteed vote on certain things for certain Republicans to turn against him or turn him in. Well, they would have to deny or disavow themselves of him in a way that would, well, disallow him from voting on things they would need his vote for. But of course, that's a whole different process or an extension of congressional process. We'll see if that actually plays out. D'Esposito said the resolution will be co-sponsored by fellow first-term GOP Representatives Nick Lolota, Mike Lawler, Mark Molinaro, Nick Langworthy, and Brandon Williams, all from New York. So what about everyone from everywhere else? What do they have to say about it? The announcement comes one day after prosecutors in New York filed a superseding indictment against Santos. Speaking of superseding indictments, and there's a link to that. Let's see what that brings up for us. Another article from The Hill. Santos charged with 10 new criminal counts in superseding indictment. So that's what I want to dig into just momentarily, because he has had so much that he has done wrong. It's hard to know what is being referred to at any given moment. Representative George Santos was charged with 10 new criminal counts Tuesday over accusations he inflated his campaign finance reports and charged donors credit cards without authorization. Wouldn't put it past him. Santos pleaded not guilty in May to a 13-count indictment, and the new charges bring the total to 23. By the way, I tied Bob Menendez to Joe Biden, so let me just tie George Santos to Donald Trump real quick. I know he has a lot of charges against him, a lot of indictments against him, for that matter. And I'm not one to jump in and act as though I would like to save him from any of them either. He's just another politician as far as I'm concerned, among other things. More of a showman at this point. And yesterday he had some very, very controversial things to say about, well, Bibi Netanyahu, as well as other officials in the Israeli government, Israel as a whole, and groups like, well, Hamas and Hezbollah. Many people are claiming that he was praising those groups, those terrorist groups, calling them very smart. I guess that's up for debate. But regardless, what he said was controversial, and he was taking cheap shots at Israel. And some of it might come back to bite him. We'll see. But Donald Trump does have a big mouth, and also has made some decisions which are worth looking into as is happening. And I am in favor of a fair and square justice system. So if there are going to be indictments against him, then there should be indictments against every one of these other corrupt politicians as far as I'm concerned. So as long as the justice system is actually acting justly, I'm down. That's a bandwagon I can hop on. Santos pleaded not guilty, though, in May to a 13-count indictment, and the new charges bring the total to 23, so almost doubled up. The charges add new criminal exposure for the embattled lawmaker who began his first term in January after admitting to embellishing parts of his background while campaigning. Santos is due to appear in court October 27. The additional indictment comes days after Santos' former campaign treasurer, Nancy Marks, reached a deal with prosecutors and pleaded guilty to conspiring with the then candidate, to carry out a scheme prosecutors are dubbing the party program, in which the duo committed fraud on Santos's campaign finance reports. I mean, the dude lied about a lot of stuff that's not even taken into consideration in his indictment. Some of it comes down to criminality, some of it doesn't. That's how it goes. He's just someone that I do not trust, generally speaking. And if you do, I think you're a fool. Even the people who are okay with him being in Congress, I don't think that they would say that they trust him. Which is kind of a self-smear, if you ask me. If you're in Congress and your stance is, well, they're just lies, well, we'll let him stick around. Maybe it's because you're a liar as well, and corrupt. Those two things go hand in hand, of course. The scheme was meant to ensure that Santos and his campaign qualified for a National Party Committee program that would provide financial and logistical support to Santos's bid for Congress. Prosecutors said to qualify, the New York Republican had to show his campaign raised at least $250,000 from third-party contributors in a single quarter. After failing to qualify for the program in October 2021, an agent of the National Party Committee told Santos that the only driver that matters is raising $250K, according to the indictment. We are going to do this a little different. I got it, Santos allegedly replied. The charging document says. You got what exactly? Got yourself indicted. To make that representation, Santos and Marks agreed to falsely report to the Federal Election Commission, FEC, that at least 10 family members made significant contributions to the campaign despite knowing they had not, according to prosecutors. The defendant, George Anthony DeVolder Santos, and Marks knew that none of these reported contributions were true, the indictment reads. Making false statements related to a campaign. Well, that is something that Donald Trump has been accused of in various forms and fashions. But, all of these cases, there are co-conspirators. Who exactly did what? It's hard to get to the bottom of all of it, especially when you have to go, as I do, in a moment. But let me see if I can get through the rest of this article. Do a bit of speed reading here. Santos also falsely reported to the National Party Committee and the FEC that he loaned his campaign $500,000, an impossibility, since Santos had just $8,000 in his personal and business bank accounts, prosecutors claim. The second alleged scheme involved Santos stealing the identities and financial information of contributors to his campaign and changing their credit cards repeatedly without authorization. That's a big no-no. How would you feel if someone did that to you? Through these unauthorized transactions, DeVolder Santos transferred funds to the committee, to the campaigns of other candidates for elected office, and his personal bank account. The superseding indictment reads, asserting that Santos falsely representative that those contributions were made by other individuals, including his relatives and associates. But he got this. He got this, y'all. The new charges comprise one count of conspiracy to commit offenses against the United States, 2 counts of wire fraud, 2 counts of making materially false statements to the FEC, 2 counts of falsifying records submitted to obstruct the FEC, 2 counts of aggravated identity theft, and 1 count of access device fraud. Thiel has reached out to Santos for comment. Santos's congressional office said it doesn't comment on legal matters, and Santos's lawyer declined to comment. Breon Peace, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, said Santos is accused of stealing people's identities and making changes or charges on his own donors' credit cards without their authorization, lying to the FEC and, by extension, the public about his financial state. or the financial state of his campaign. Santos falsely inflated the campaign's reported receipts with non-existent loans and contributions that were either fabricated or stolen, Peace said. This office will relentlessly pursue criminal charges against anyone who uses the electoral process as an opportunity to defraud the public and our government institutions. In May, the embattled lawmaker pleaded not guilty to 13 federal charges connected to separate accusations that he misled campaign donors, fraudulently received unemployment benefits, and lied on financial disclosures. Since the original indictment, 2 of Santos' former staffers have faced charges. In August, Samuel Miel, Santos' former fundraiser, pleaded not guilty to 5 charges over accusations he impersonated a top aide to a member of House leadership while soliciting contributions for Santos' campaign. Mark struck the plea deal with prosecutors earlier this month. Everyone getting plea deals these days. Hunter Biden. And I will cover that at a later point in time. But I have to go. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Keep in touch. Keep in tune. New content is coming soon. Sorry I didn't really break down this news about the motion or the move to expel him from Congress. I hope that happens, because I'm not a fan of the man. I'm not a fan of those who put the con in congressmen. Yeah, whether it's Bob Menendez or George Santos, their day in court is coming. Well, in a sense, has already come. So, we'll see what else there is to see and to say. I'll be back later today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Keep in touch. Keep in tune. New content is coming soon. As I already said, gotta go. Peace.